Hello everybody, Keith here again. I'm going to do my end of the month what's in bloom video. We've got some new ones, one that very nearly made me cry, and some that I think, well, I hope you'll find interesting. We're going to start with some of the one-offs and my Phalaenopsis. And the first one is this. Now, I got it as a no ID quite a few years ago now. It was a very large orchid. But as you might be able to see from the different lengths of leaf, it had got a lot of mealybug, which I did manage to sort out. And after I got rid of the mealybugs, it bloomed itself to death. And I suspect I didn't feed it well enough because it collapsed when the flowering finally stopped. I didn't know enough to start cutting spikes off, and it did nothing for ages, but now it is flowering regularly again and the leaves are starting to lengthen. I don't know how well you're going to see that, but just here, look, we've got some new root tips re-emerging and it's branching all over the place. So this is quite a happy bunny and I'm really pleased because I think it's gorgeous. I used to think it was fancy fresco, but somebody assures me that it's Fuller's Sunset Golden Sun. Whether it is or whether it isn't, I think it's gorgeous. The sublime to the ridiculous, you might say. That's about as big an orchid as I've got, apart from fancy fresco. This one is Phalaenopsis mannii, which is altogether a smaller plant. I've had it just on 12 months. I got it in a plant swap. It's grown a couple of nice leaves, and now it's put this flower spike up, and I think that bloom is absolutely gorgeous. The big ones, like that last one I've just shown you, are very nice and it's kind of in your face, but I'm beginning to think more and more the simpler flowers are the prettier, and that'll do me very nicely. It might be a species, it's not, it's no more difficult to keep than any other one like this. This is a no ID, which you've seen many times before. I got this a couple of years ago now from Marks and Spencer's in Salisbury when we were down there for the Bournemouth Society 60th anniversary show, and I wanted it for the jar rather than the orchid, but this is an absolute cracker. It grows really well, we've got loads of roots. It put out 2 spikes this time and now got a new leaf coming, so this one you don't get them any easier, and it's a decent size for keeping in the house. This one, it's got to be said, is turning into a bit of a mess. The pot is all over the place. It's probably well overdue for a repot. I've been thinking about leaving it until the spike was over, but every time I think about doing that, the spike just keeps extending, so I think that's going to have a repot fairly soon and be potted up into a bigger pot, because there's a lot of roots that need to be housed a bit better. Another one that you've seen umpteen times before, this is Mini Mark. Very nearly at the end of flowering on these 2 spikes, which it's had out for months and months and months. No signs of any new leaves. We've got root tips re-emerging around the other side, and I thought, oh great, this thing's now going into vegetative growth. And I had a look at around the plant yesterday, and what do I find? Again, I don't know how well you're going to see it, but we've actually got two spikes, two new spikes. So this has got to be fed like food is going out of style, I think, or I'm going to lose it. It's in this very tall pot because when I potted it some time ago now, it had very long roots, and I don't like to cut roots for no obvious reason, but I think it's getting to the point now where it needs fetching out of that, and we'll have another go and see what state it's in underground, but it doesn't look bad, really. Right, that is all of the plants, all of my Phalaenopsis. This is my primary hybrid Renanthera. It's unfortunate that the first flower has opened without any petals. The next one, which is there, does have petals, but that's only opened today, so we're quite lucky to get it in now. This is a cross between Amayani and Monachica, and it looks a lot like Monachica. It's basically yellow with orangey red spots. We've got a nice spike, and again, this thing doesn't do a fat lot, grows a little bit, flowers once a year, sits on a windowsill. For a Vandaceous type, they don't come a lot easier. No scent, unfortunately, but there you go. Doesn't seem to mind light. As you can see there, I'm sure we've got purple down the stem. So it's getting a fair amount of light where it is. Rostrepia brachypus. This was one that struggled to get a bloom completely open when I first got it. The blooms just kept failing before they opened. Once it's opened, it really hasn't stopped. And we've got one open there, and we've got another bud forming there. I'm very, very pleased with these Rostrepias, the three of them that I got from Burnham's last year. They all are going to get repotted in the near future. They are project, my development plants, part of that group, but I think they're ready for doing. After all, they are in moss, and they're in a very, very humid atmosphere in my little terrarium setup, so the moss is not going to last all that well. So this is definitely going to want looking at before very much longer. But for something I never thought I would ever be able to keep, it's amazing how well they are doing. Another old friend back in flower. This is Zygonosia Rhine Blue Angel, bought from Burnham's 2 years ago now as a no ID. I bought it, although it's unscented, because it's a different colour from a lot of the Zygopetalum hybrids, and I find that colour pattern quite intriguing. It flowers like a lot of zygos on an extremely immature pseudobulb. We've got another new growth showing up over there, so yet again we've got another plant that is doing extremely well for me. This is potted in a mix of bark, moss and ceramis, so it's quite moist down there. It probably wants moving back all across the back of the pot now. There's quite a gap, so it can come back and probably give itself some room to expand. Another one of the plants I've got in my development group. This is Psychopsis mariposa. I'm fascinated by this thing. It's very unusual, of course, because it grows and flowers at the same time. And this is now on a regular cycle. And it's flowered all the way through the winter. So now I've got it into its happy state. It's doing really well. We've got two new growths at the moment. We've got this one, which is well progressed, and there's another one in the middle of the plant just coming up. As the daylight's increased, you can see some of the freckling is starting to come back on the older leaf, the kind of thing that you can perhaps see better. The new leaves always emerge with freckling, which tends to go away, but these do quite like light, and I think from what I've read, if you've got them lightly freckled, they get enough light. At the moment, mine is probably not getting quite enough. And finally, in this first group, this is the one that I could have didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or just give up orchids altogether. This is a Miltoniopsis. It's one of the breathless group. Waterfall pattern, very, very pretty. And it's the first one that I've kept. And we know that these things can be quite tricky to keep. And it came with 3 pseudobulbs, which grew steadily. And a few weeks ago, I noticed this spike start to emerge from the back of this pseudobulb, not coming up through the leaves as Miltonia types and Oncidium types tend to do, but it came out the side, and I thought, well, okay, that's fair enough. I got one of them to flower. That's wonderful, and I was very pleased with that. And then a few days ago, when I was watering it, I noticed this that was jammed in amongst some leaves, and it had tried to open the flower, and it's ripped the stem to bits. So I then went hunting, and I found out this pseudobulb had another spike on the other side, which had become so trapped it had failed completely. This one has another spike which I have managed to free. You can see it there, but it's slightly deformed. The same with this one. We've got a spike off both sides of the pseudobulb. So what it tells me is, yes, I can keep it, I can grow the pseudobulbs, I can get it to reflower, but I've got to watch it, because something I find with a lot of my orchids is the leaves stick together. I don't know what the adhesive is, what purpose it serves in nature, but a lot of them do it. And usually it's on things like my nobly types. I can see the leaves are not opening to it, and I can spray it with rainwater, and then it seems to dissolve whatever it is, and things carry on. But this is one that I've just got to learn by. Hopefully this will be properly in flower by next month. We won't have anything more like that, but I have got to you live and learn. Next year I'm going to know that around March I've got to start feeling up the side of the pseudobulbs for spikes, and if I find a spike I've got to start easing the leaves, even cutting some of the leaves off, which I've done on this, and we'll see how we go. So anyway, that's the last of this first group. I'll change over and we'll start again. Okay, we'll have another go, finish off. It's only 2 groups slightly larger group this time, but not too many, and this will be finished. First things first, a Phalaenopsis that I forgot to include before. This was bought as Leodoro, but probably isn't. Leodoro should be scented, and it's not. But from what I think Roger Frampton has said, there are two crosses of the same parents, and one is pollen parent, seed parent, and then pollen parent, seed parent. The plants look, to all intents and purposes, identical. The difference is one of them is scented and one of them isn't. It's an oddball. It's supposed to be one of the summer flowering types. You can see it's got a very large pale green leaf, and it will reflower on old canes for a bit, as this one is doing. It's not quite a branch, although that is. Sometimes it'll just sprout, and I've got several old canes down here with little bits on the end that haven't moved in ages, and I really don't know what to do with it. It's not put any new leaves up for ages. We've got plenty of roots, but like the mini mark, this has been in a tall pot for a long time, because as you can see here, the roots can get quite long. So I think it's time this also came out of the pot and had a look at. My bowl of peonies, these are Tongariro. As you can see, I've got new flowers, open flowers, and flowers that have gone over. Unfortunately, that looks like the leaf's gone on that one, which would be a great shame. But we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that's just the back sheath. There is something behind it, which could easily be the leaf. These have done extremely well for me over the past couple of years since I bought 6, and I've actually ended up with about 20. Well, I've got bulbs that are at different stages of sprouting. Whether that means I'll get flowers off all of them, I don't know. I don't mind, but every new growth means another bulb for next year, and the bigger I can get the bulbs, the better it will be, obviously, for flowers next year. I've got to try and work out a better way of keeping them. I think I put them outside, and they obviously enjoy being outside and getting lots of rain and air movement and all the rest of it. But I don't think they're getting fed enough, so I've got to try and work out a way of giving them high volumes of feed, because they've got a very short growing season. Right, let's have a look now at the Paphiopedilums. This you've seen for a number of months now. This is the so-called American hybrid, or bulldog path, that the purists don't like, but for anybody who hasn't got a Paphiopedilum, and if you've got room for it, because this is a big lump, without a doubt, probably 70 or 80 metres across if the leaves were straightened right out. 70, 80 centimetres across, I mean, about 30-35 centimetres on each leaf. It's a big plant, but it's very, very tolerant, grows well, just like treat it like a Phalaenopsis, it grows very well, and the flowers last for a very long time. For a newcomer to Paphiopedilums, there really isn't anything else you can say about that. And I happen to like the flower. I think some of that is going to be, what's the word? The fact that it's the first one I bought that wasn't a Phalaenopsis, and it's just rewarding me with flowers all the time. Right, a much smaller plant this time, but equally easy to grow. This is Phalaenopsis dillanatii. Again, treat it like a Phalaenopsis, sit on a windowsill. Mine faces northwest. It's in the kitchen, so it's a slightly higher humidity than anywhere else. It never gets warm in there anyway, because it doesn't get a lot of direct sun. And overnight it'll cool down from against the glass. And it seems to do these mottle leaf paths really well. As I say, this is dillanatii, the standard form. It is going to go very soon. I don't know how well you're going to see it, but if you look at the back of that, there's a slight browning of the flower. So I think in the next week or so I'm going to lose that. But that's been out for a while. I haven't seen any signs of a new fan yet, but this one does seem to grow one fan and flower it and then grow another one. Unlike some of the others I've got. And this one, which is even smaller, is dillanatii, but the vinicola, the darker version. Everything about this is much darker. There's much more colour in it. Even the back of the leaf, instead of being purple, is virtually black. Now, whether that means all the extra red pigmentation slows down the conversion of sunlight in the leaf because it can't absorb it the same, I don't know. It could affect the photosynthesis, but the fact that this one is about 2/3 the size of the standard form might be the plant, it might be the way these are, it might simply be that it's not quite such an efficient plant as the standard form. Who knows? I'm not a biologist, I'm a research engineer, and a research mining engineer at that. So I'm good at hitting things with hammers, but not very much else. Mordii. This is the third and last of the flowers from this year, and there are signs it's going over. So this will be gone in 2 or 3 days. Once it decides it's had enough, this goes away very quickly. Three's quite good. I've got several new growths already showing. So this is a plant, very much unlike the dillanatii. This grows a number of fans at the same time, and flowers on some, and then flowers on the rest another time. So, and the thing is, the old fans don't die off very fast either. So you've got old fans that have flowered perhaps 2 years ago, or still in prime condition, no signs of the leaves dropping or anything like that. So that's a plant that really ought to be easy. I know Roger Frampton was saying the other day that he's struggling with it. I don't know why, but perhaps it's simply, my conditions suit them, Roger's don't. Right, the last group, dendrobiums. My white No ID Noble, which is almost certainly Spring Dream, the one that you can buy in any supermarket pretty much anywhere you like, grows very well for me. If you've got the room for it, because this is a big plant, you're talking about something that's pushing 60 centimetres above the top of the pot, and the roots go all the way down to the bottom. So it's in a big pot and all the rest of it, but it grows well, grows fast, just copes extremely well with my conditions, and flowers more or less when it likes. I've had flowers at all kinds of times of the year. It'll just do it, and there you are. No real seasonality with that. I suppose that's an aspect of all the different plants that have gone into its makeup. Another Nobly type. This is one which I got as a raffle prize at one of the East Midlands Orchid Society meetings a little while ago, probably a year or more ago now. I got it as Akazukin. It doesn't look like either of the plants that have got Akazukin in the name. The one that is Dendrobium Akazukin on orchid roots doesn't have a yellow throat, and the other one has got a completely different lip altogether. So what it is, I'm not sure. If anybody's got any idea, I'd love to have your suggestions. But isn't that an absolute delight, that one? And we've got a new growth coming. We've got a nice strong new growth, so that's good to go. Sarnoot Polar Fire. The only one of my Phalaenopsis dendrobiums that's done anything at all this year. The others have just sulked. This one is in a very, very open compost. It's small bark, but it's got leaker and all sorts of stuff in there. It's some stuff that I bought from a member of the East Midlands Orchid Society who does various compost mixtures and sells them at meetings. And initially I thought, I'll use it up because I've got it. But in fact, this dendrobium does seem to like it. It drains very quickly, it dries quite quickly, and that seems to suit this very well. Got a nice heavy cane, no sign yet of a new growth, but I suspect it's only going to be a matter of time. And the final plant for this month is Dendrobium tetragonum, the square-shaped canes. This is the giganteum form. It has not stopped flowering this year. It worries me to death because we've got no sign of a new growth. We didn't get a new growth last year. It's just flowered. I saw this growth emerge a few weeks ago and I thought, oh, a keiki. Well, that's handy. I might actually get something I can replant and grow another one. No, it's turned out it's putting more flowers out. There's nothing else coming out of the top of there. There's nothing coming out of the top of there. There is out of the top of that one. So what is it doing? I have absolutely no idea. Is it going to be alright? Is it just going to flower itself out? Again, I don't know. The canes are not shrivelling. They aren't plump, but they're not really shriveled. And I get the impression that they're not altogether flat-sided. They are slightly concave. In which case, this is hydrating well enough. But I just wish you to put a new growth up. I'll be a lot happier if it did that. We got some new roots, because the roots are very, very fine. And if it loses its roots, I've got a horrible feeling I'm going to lose the plant. I don't really want to do that. It's so bizarre. It's one that would be nice to keep for the foreseeable future. So that is everything in flower at the end of March 2021. I hope that we'll have some different flowers next month. I've got another Nobly type which should be Virginale to come in. That's in bud and the buds are beginning to develop, and that's a completely white form of the species. So I've got Cooksonia, I've got Albiflorum, which has got a plain white petals but a purple throat, and then I've got that one. What I haven't got is the straight species. I've got several oncidium types that are in spike that should be out and doing by then. So with that, I'll thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll be seeing you soon for a repot of some Rich Streppias, I suspect. Thank you. Bye.